My name is Robert Gunn. I work for Coast Tire. I've been employed here for the last 18 years. I was doing a service call, putting a tire back together, which involved a lock ring, a multi-piece rim, and it's common practice when we're putting it together that you tap the lock ring, make sure that it's seated in the groove that it's supposed to be in. And when we were in that process, the lock ring, upon tapping, let go from its said spot and come back and deflected and hit my legs and my arms. A couple of the guys that were off to the side kept telling me to stay down, and me being stubborn, I decided I was going to get up. So when I put my hand down on the ground to pick myself up, that's when I knew something was terribly wrong. When I look back, there was a lot of things probably going through my head at the time. Am I going to die? You know, I had a young family at home, but I'm going to leave my kids. I guess that was the biggest thing.
He was attempting to remove that tire when what's called a split rim locking ring detached from the tire under high pressure. Unfortunately, it flew back and struck him on all four extremities, breaking all four limbs. He was thrown partly across the road at the time. Unlike a typical fracture where you may fall and break a limb, this is a much higher velocity injury.
His employer contacted him right away, and they were very upfront with whatever Rob needed. They would be able to provide him. We met with Rob, his wife, the case coordinator here, myself, and his employers to talk about return to work, what it would look like, what duties would be appropriate.
He was always connected to everybody. He had other employees from other locations throughout the Maritimes visiting him. Pillar in the community, definitely.
He did mention his family quite a bit when we'd have conversations about his children and his wife and how supportive they all were. And I think that was part of the thing that was difficult for him. When he had his injury, he wasn't the same guy he was before his injury.
I went to work that day like any other day, and you know, it could have been a whole different situation. I could have two daughters that might not have a father right now.
You couldn't picture life without him. Just after the phone call, it ran through your head how fast life would change if he was not here with us.
But I went from a fully grown man who was quite capable of doing everything for himself to being a full dependent person on everybody around me. You know, from simple tasks as eating, had to learn how to walk again.
Initially, I assessed him from a functional perspective, and we formulated a care plan. He was ready to go from day one, and it was really all about what do we have to do next to make this happen, and how do I get to a point where I'm back to where I need to be. So really right out of the gate, he had a positive attitude, and I think that's a huge part of why he did so well. He was just very positive in terms of his outlook.
The day the doctor, Stuart Campbell, said, let's get back to work, it was like the green light was turned on. It was go time. You know, I can remember sitting talking to him. He said, let's aim for 1st of October. And I said, how about we go 1st of September? It probably crossed my mind that I would have to adapt to some modifications, I guess, but I wanted back to work. I enjoyed what I did, and I wanted to get back at it.
We just needed to figure out what he could and couldn't do, so when we discussed it, we knew that he was allowed to do some office work. At the time, he was still healing and having issues with one of his legs, so he wasn't allowed to do prolonged standing. He wasn't allowed to carry anything, so we just developed a plan that could he do his job from the store.
He, to this day, lacks a little bit of range of motion in both of his arms in terms of his ability to turn his hands both up and down. This presented problems in a conventional sense when he was using the computer. Most computer mice sit relatively flat on the desk, and because he couldn't effectively turn his hand fully palm down, we had to modify certain aspects of his workstation, one of which was the mouse.
After his injury, he had a lot of support from his employer, from his family, from WCB, so I think that made the biggest difference. And I mean, there's a lot of ups and downs in recovery, and he never kind of let those down times define his ability to get back to doing what he needed to do.
I can't say enough about everybody in general, like from the hospital to physio to workers' comp to Coast Tire. You know, as bad as an experience it was a good experience.